Hello, everyone, and happy Friday. The weekend is here, and boy, am I happy. I hope you all are too. What we're about to dig into is a disturbing case out of Minnesota in which a young woman is charged in a $14 million fraud scheme tied to autism therapy services. Not only is she involved in the autism fraud case, she's tied to the Feeding the Future fraud too. It is disgusting how government programs meant to help vulnerable children can be twisted for personal gain. Let's talk about what we know so far. Welcome to Nellie Miranda.
Take a look at this graph showing the explosion in this program. This is the amount of money the state has paid in Medicaid claims to autism treatment providers using your tax dollars. You can see in 2017, not that much, just more than $1 million. But you see the gradual growth here. In 2021, more than $80 million. But look at last year, more than $220 million paid out in claims, with a grand total of just shy of $700 million. This is what state investigators are now looking at, these soaring costs, and questioning how many providers are doing real work.
Let's start with the facts. A 28-year-old Somalian woman named Asha Farhan Hassan from Minneapolis is now charged with wire fraud for her alleged role in a $14 million autism fraud scheme. She is said to have run a company called Smart Therapy LLC, billing Medicaid for early intervention autism services. Services she allegedly never delivered. But it gets worse. The charging docs claimed she recruited children who did not have autism and even paid parents kickbacks, sometimes over $1,000, to enroll them. Officials say that some parents threatened to move their children to competing therapy centers unless they got higher kickbacks. She also faces charges tied to another scandal, the Feeding Our Future program, allegedly pocketing nearly $500,000 in false claims under that one. Oh, my word. She better not drop a single tear on that stand.
It is a fraud case that the U.S. attorney says could end up being larger than the $250 million Feeding Our Future scheme. Not only could it be larger, but it also stems from that scheme. And today, the first charges were filed in federal court. Carol Levin's Lou Ragoose leads us off tonight.
Smart Therapy, the Autism Center located on Nicollet Avenue in the Stevens Square neighborhood of Minneapolis, was enrolled in 2 government programs now believed to be littered with fraud. According to the charging documents for owner Asha Hassan, she pocketed $14 million from the Department of Human Services meant to help children with autism, and $465,000 meant to feed kids in need, the meal scam known as Feeding Our Future.
There's many other companies that have similar billings that are under investigation.
Acting U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson has spoken countless times about the $300 million Feeding Our Future case. While prosecuting that, he discovered many suspects also owned autism centers, which kicked off the current investigation.
Where does autism fall in there now?
It's probably right up there with Feeding Our Future, I'd say.
Hassan is accused of recruiting and bribing parents to bring their kids to her autism center for services they did not need.
Is that a crime?
It is a crime.
Listen to how intertwined this alleged fraud was. Court papers say those bribed parents used driver services to get their kids to and from the autism center. Those drivers would bill DHS for that, also fraud. And those drivers were also on the Smart Therapy payroll, earning taxpayer money that way as well.
This is the first of what we expect to be many indictments and informations.
And as the amount of fraud dollars prosecuted grows, Thompson expects it to top $1 billion across all the programs. But he says the total fraud amount in Minnesota is even higher.
I said we have $1 billion worth of cases we'll probably charge. I think the total amount of fraud is significantly larger than $1 billion.
Larger than $1 billion total?
That's right.
Multiple billion?
Yes.
The defendant, Asha Hassan, is not currently in custody. A court hearing is expected to be scheduled within the next couple weeks.
In response, Minnesota's Department of Human Services has reclassified autism services as high risk for fraud, imposing new oversight, fingerprinting, unannounced inspections, screening visits before enrollments, even a temporary moratorium on new autism providers until licensing reform takes effect. Currently, DHS has 84 open investigations tied to autism providers and 24 active payment holds. Now, why should this grab your attention beyond the headline? There are deeper implications. There's a moral breach here. Autism services are emotionally and financially heavy for families seeking help. When someone abuses that system, it undermines trust in every provider in the network. For honest therapists, it becomes harder to be believed. For families in need, skepticism becomes part of the burden. Most importantly, or just as equally important, taxpayers pay. Medicaid is public money. Every fraudulent dollar siphoned off is a dollar that could have gone to legitimate services. It is an abuse of public trust. Fraud in any government program, even with a noble purpose, inevitably costs more to police, more to guard, and more to clean up.
Federal prosecutors say this involved fake bills, unqualified employees, and monthly kickbacks to families to keep them enrolled. All of it to the tune of $14 million, and all of it going undetected by the state for years. Tonight, the first shoe has dropped in the federal investigation of Minnesota's autism program. Months after the FBI raided Smart Therapy, prosecutors are now charging its owner, Asha Farhan Hassan, for her role in what they describe as a $14 million autism fraud scheme. U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson hinted at the charges coming last week.
As many of you know, Minnesota is drowning in fraud.
According to the charging documents, Hassan worked with others to recruit families from the Somali community, whether kids had autism or not. Prosecutors write that there was no child that Smart Therapy was not able to get qualified for autism services. Then, to drive up enrollment, they paid monthly kickbacks to families between $300 to $1,500 per child. Prosecutors say Hassan and her partners paid for it all through the millions worth of fraudulent Medicaid claims.
What is her education background, work background, to be qualified to provide said services? How does someone recruit children without diagnosis? How do kickbacks get paid? That suggests weak verification, loose oversight, and incentive misalignments. If you design a system that is generous but lacks checks, it invites abuse. And unfortunately, the most frequent revelation in scandals like this is that oversight is reactive, not preventative. This is a systemic design flaw. Before any program goes into effect, they should already have thought about all the possibilities of fraud and found a way to counter them all. Unless government officials were benefiting from these frauds too. Who knows? Here's what her lawyer had to say about her case.
She knows she's guilty. She wants to make it right.
Hassan's attorney, Ryan Pasiga, says his client is cooperating with investigators in plans to plead guilty.
Asha Hassan's someone who, in her heart, wanted to start businesses for the right reasons. But nonetheless, Asha knew at some point that the fraud began, and she let it continue on for a while.
Did your client ever actually provide real autism services?
Yes, there were real services provided, but it was at a fraction of what was billed for.
Do you know if Asha will be able to pay back the $14 million?
No, who could?
It's always that they had good intentions in their hearts. They meant to do so well. They had good intentions, but the money was too much that they became stupid. They had no intentions on doing good. They had intentions to enrich themselves and their families. They laughed all the way to the bank, zipping around in their luxury vehicles on stolen tax dollars, and now we should feel some sympathy. Insanity. We absolutely need oversight, but not oversight for its own sake. We need real accountability. Audits must have teeth, clawbacks, penalties, public transparency. Otherwise, oversight becomes window dressing. I also believe that we should question how centralized these programs are. The more money flows through state or federal bureaucracies, the more opportunities there are for abuse. Could we push more decentralized or market-oriented designs, vouchers, parent-directed funds, competition, real choice, yet still safeguard against fraud? Yes, but the design must account for misuse. Providers should be more stringently vetted. Licensing should not just verify credentials, but also mandate performance metrics, random inspections, and require providers to have skin in the game. If someone fails to deliver, there should be financial consequences, not just the loss of a license. Listen to Dr. Eric Larson, who helped get the autism program going over a decade ago.
It makes me sad for the families.
Dr. Eric Larson has dedicated his life to helping families with autism, running LaVos Institute Midwest here in Minneapolis. He even helped the state stand up its autism program a decade ago.
The only reason we're delivering the services is because families worked so hard over the past 30 years to develop this program.
But now that program is in the crosshairs of state investigators. As 5 Investigates first reported, 1 in 5 autism centers in the state is now under an investigation after a new crackdown on fraud. How do you explain that big of a number of open investigations?
Yeah, there was such a high need for autism services in Minnesota when the state began offering it that it's an unlicensed service. So there aren't the same structures in place.
This is exactly why we should encourage whistleblower incentives and empower independent audits. Let external eyes see what internal eyes may have missed. If people are coming forward with receipts of fraud, give them $10,000 or something. Providing a few hundreds of thousands in incentives for being a whistleblower is a small price to pay in comparison to the millions of dollars that these thieves were getting away with. Lastly, we have to recognize human nature. Whenever you place large amounts of public money in a system, some people will try to game it. But what do you think? Should parents who took kickbacks also face charges? And how much prison time do you think fits a $14 million fraud like this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And as always, if honest commentary brings you value, please make sure you like and subscribe to support the channel and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.